crisis began. A common saying in the country after independence was that it didn't matter what you knew, but who you knew. And believe me, it was no idle talk for a person like me who simply couldn't stoop to lick any big man's boots. It created a big problem. In fact, one reason why I took his teaching job in a posh private school instead of a smart civil service job in the city with a car, free housing, etc. was to give myself a certain amount of autonomy. So when I told the minister that I had applied for a scholarship to do a postgraduate certificate of education in London, it did not even cross my mind to enlist his help. I think it is important to stress this point. I had scholarships both to the secondary school and to the university without any godfather's help, but purely on my own merit. And in any case, it wasn't too important whether I did the postgraduate course or not. As far as I was concerned, the important thing was to be the opportunity of visiting Europe, which it in itself must be a big education. My friend Andrew Katibi, who did the same course the previous year, seemed to have got a big kick out of it. I don't mean the white gears, you can have those out here nowadays, but quite small things. I remember him saying, for instance, that the greatest delight of his entire visit to Britain was when, for the first time in his 27 years, a white man, a taxi driver, I think, carried his suitcase and said sir to him. He was so thrilled. He tipped the man 10 shillings. We laughed a lot about it, but I could so easily see it happening. But much as I wanted to go to Europe, I wasn't going to sell my soul for it or beg anyone to help me. It was the minister himself who came back to the postgraduate question at the end of the reception without any promoting whatever from me as a matter of fact. I tried hard to avoid catching his attention again, and the proposal he made didn't seem to me to be offensive in any way. He invited me to come and spend my holiday with him in the capital, and while I was there, he would try and find out from his cabinet colleague, the Minister of Overseas Training, whether there was anything doing. If you come as soon as you close, he said, you can stay in my guest room with everything complete: bedroom, parlor, bathroom, latrine, everything self-contained. You can live by yourself and do anything you like there. It's all yours. Make you no mean, ma'am, Ja, said Mrs. Shaw to me. I can see, say you na good boy, make you no graham, spoil you me. I no devote this bedroom and bathroom business. So, as you see, this man, so now wicked soul, if he tell you stand, make you run. Everybody laughed at Eleanor. Why you want disgrace me and spoil my name so for public for nothing's sake? What did I do you? Everybody here sabi say me na good Christian. No be so shameless. Ah, na so sir, played the journalist happily. In spite of all this joking, the minister's invitation was serious and firm. He said it was important I came at once, as he was planning to go to the United States in about 2 months. They are going to give me a doctorate degree, and also proudly Doctor of Laws LLD. That's great, I said. Congratulations. Thank you, my brother. So the minister will become chief, the Honorable Dr. N.A. Nangara, intoned the journalist. All second ahead of my own thoughts on the matter. We all cheered the impressive address and its future owner. You know, see, say the title fit my name, said the minister with boyish excitement, and we all said yes, it suited him perfectly. But the man way I like him, Naim Pasna, Chief the Honorable Alaji Dr. Mongo Siko MP, said the minister somewhat wistfully. Oh, good to admit an incomparable journalist, but he No passive answer. Shift the honorable DMA Nanga and PLLD now and nothing fit Passam. What about Chief Dr. Mrs. I threw in mischievously. That one no sweet for mouth, said the minister. Catch wine wrong with them? Asked Mrs. John, because no woman can go sweet for mouth. I don't talk say now only for election time women to get equality for this our country. No be so, madam, said the journalist. You see how the title rough like sandpaper for mouth. Dr. Chief Mrs. Kacharol. Before the minister left, he made sure I took down his residential address in the capital. Felt Mr. Newby malevolent eyes pouring into me as I rubbed it down, and hardly were the farewells out of his mouth before he turned to me and asked similarly if I was still of the opinion that it was unnecessary to be introduced to the minister. What I objected to was standing in a line like school children. I said, somewhat embarrassed. In any case, I didn't need to be introduced. We knew each other already. You can thank your stars that I am not a wicked man, he continued, as though I had said nothing. Otherwise, I would have told him. Why don't you run after him now? I asked. He cannot have gone very far. What that I walked away from the obscure old fool. But when I came to think of the event of the day, I had to admit that Mr. Nwiki had not had fair returns for all his trouble. I don't think the minister gave him as much as a second to raise any of his own problems, and it was uncharitable, I thought, for him to have joined in as loudly as he had done in the push-me-down lover for the sake of appearances. At least he could have kept a straight face. It was clear the great man did not easily forgive those who took up part of his time to make their own speeches. He ostentatiously ignored Mr. Nwiki for the rest of the day. Poor man, he had lost the chance of getting on the new cooperation for the disposal of dilapidated government wares, with which she was no doubt helping to replace the even more worn out equipment in his school. So although it was unreasonable for him to have turned his anger on me, there was no doubt he had cause to be angry. Actually, his teachers had let him down badly that afternoon. Apart from myself, there was that MA minus opportunity incident, which for some obscure reason seemed to have annoyed the minister even more than Mr. Nwigi's long speech. At least he contained the latter noise with effort to crown Mr. Nwigi's discomfiture. His senior teacher, a man in his 60s, had sallied out of the lodge with one bottle of beer and each armpit to the called them to all to George's bar. I was lighting my daily lamp later that evening when somebody knocked on my door. Come in if you are good looking, I said. Is Oddly in? Asked in a natural high-pitched voice. Come in, fool, I said. It was a silly joke, Andrew, and I never tired of playing on each other. The idea was to sound like a gear and so send the other's blood pressure up. How the Gitico, I asked, pose a movement, and did you find out about that girl? I asked, why not so girl, please hold your mouth went in. So person if it took any serious talk with you, I never see. Okay, Mr. Gentleman, I said, pumping the lamp. Any person waivers mention about girl again for this room, make his tongue cut. How is the weather? He laughed. At that point, my houseboy, 15 years old, Rogi called Peter, came in to ask what you should cook for supper. You know, hear the news for 3 o'clock. I asked, feigning great seriousness. Sir, government done pass a new law saying now only 2 times a day person go to shop now for morning and for afternoon finish. He laughed that is next to impossibility, he said Peter like it is was long. He had his standard 6 certificate which 2 of 3 years before could have got him a job as a messenger in an office or even a teacher in an elementary school. But today there simply aren't any jobs for his kind of person anymore, and he was lucky to be sort of housekeeper to me for £1 a month, including of course free board and lodging. He spent most of his spare time reading, although his favorite literature is of a very dubious kind. I once found him reading a strange book he had just received from India. I think it was called How to Solve the Fair Sex, and that cost him no less than 10 shillings, excluding postage from New Delhi. I had roundly rebuked him. I couldn't think of what to eat, so I told him to go and roast me some yams. Roast yams at night, screamed Andrew. If you knock at my door in the middle of the night, I shan't wake up. This was a crude reference to the night I had a violent stomach ache after eating half a dozen roasted corn. I had been so scared I had gone up to take me to hospital in his ancient car. What do you suggest I eat then? I asked him. Am I your wife? Don't you see all the cares waiting for us? Don't you fear, I have my eyes on my right now. True, give me Tori. Who is she about? What about the poem? The same, I said, and we recited together a poem one of our acquaintances had composed for his wedding invitation card. It is time to spread the news abroad that we are well prepared to tie ourselves with silvery cord of a sweet conjugal bond. Look at this small picking, said Andrew in pretended anger to Peter, who had joined our lover. How dare you laugh with your elders? Sorry, sir, said Peter, frowning comically. What do you think I should eat, Peter? I asked. Anything master talk like full of rice, sir. I knew whenever you allowed him a say in this matter, he invariably came up with full of rice, his favorite dish. Okay, I said 1 cup of rice, not 1.5, not 1.25. Yes, sir, he said, and went away happily. I knew he would cook at least 2 cups. So is she? I said. Who, the girl with the minister? His girlfriend. I see. Actually, it's more than that. He's planning to marry her according to native law and custom. Apparently, his missus is too posh for his present position, so he wants a bright new parlor wife to play hostess at his parties. Too bad. Who told you all this, somebody? Too bad without knowing anything whatever about that girl. I feel she deserves to be somebody's first wife, not an old man's mistress. Anyway, it's none of my business. He sent her to a women's training college, said Andrew, so he has been planning it for a few years. At least I feel sorry for her. That man has no conscience. I said nothing. Imagine such a beautiful thing wasting her life on such an empty-headed ass. I so enjoyed wounding his pride. Did you see how wild he looked? Yes, I said. You hit him hard. Actually, I was amused how Andrew was desperately trying to convince himself and me that he had come to the reception with the avowed intention to deflate his empty-headed countryman. He seemed to be forgetting in a hurry that he had earlier refused to support me at the staff meeting when I had objected to Mr. Wiggy's stupid plans. Just think of such a cultureless man going abroad and calling himself Minister of Culture. Ridiculous. This is why the outside world loves about us. That is true, I said, but the outside world isn't all that important, is it? In any case, people like Chivnanga don't care two hoots about the outside world. He is concerned with the inside world, with how to retain his hold his constituency, and there he's attacked. You must admit anyway, as he told us today, Churchill never passed his school certificate. I see the offer of free lodging is already having its effect. I began to laugh, and Andrew joined in. You could tell a glance that he knew me in a way that Mr. Nweke didn't. It was one thing to tease me for accepting the minister's offer of accommodation, but I just didn't want anybody to think that Odilisa Malou was capable of stooping to obtain scholarship in any underhand way. To my ear, it was next to impossibility. Andrew knew, of course, that I had long been planning to go to the capital, and he knew about Elsie. Well, Elsie, where does one begin to write about her? The difficulty in writing this kind of story is that the writer is armed with all kinds of insights which he didn't have when the original event were happening. When he introduces Elsie, for instance, he already has at the back of his mind a total picture of her entrance, her act, and her exit, and this tends to color even the first words he writes. I can only hope that being aware of this danger, I have successfully kept it at bay as far as is humanly possible. I shall try not to jump ahead of my story. Elsie was, and for the matter still is, the only girl I met and slept with the same day. In fact, within an hour. I know that faster records do exist, and I'm not entering this one for that purpose, nor am I trying to prejudge anyone against Elsie. I only put it down because that was the way it happened. It was during my last term at the university, and having, as usual, put off my revision to the last moment, I was having a rough time. But one evening there was a party organized by a student Christian movement. I decided, in spite of my areas of work, to attend and give my brain time to cool off. I'm not usually lucky, but that evening I saw Elsie standing in a group with other student nurses and made a stride for her. She turned out to be a most vivacious girl, newly come to the nursing school. We danced twice, then I suggested we took a walk away from the noisy high life band, and she readily agreed. Being left to my own devices, nothing might have happened in that matter, but no doubt, without meaning to, Elsie took a hand in the mirror. She said she was thirsty, and I took her to my rooms for a drink of water. She was one of those girls who send out loud cries in the heat of the things. It happened again each time, but the first day it was rather funny because she kept calling Ralph darling. I remember wondering why Ralph it was not, until weeks later that I got to know that she was engaged to some daft fellow called Ralph, a medical student in Edinburgh. The funny part of it was that my next door neighbor, an English honors student, and easily the most ruthless and unprincipled womanizer in the entire university campus, changed to calling me Ralph. From that day, he was known to most students by his nickname Ray, which was short of irresponsible. His most celebrated conquest was a female underground who had seemed to so inaccessible that boys called her unbreakable. He became interested in her and promised his friends to break her one day soon. Then one afternoon we saw her enter his rooms. Our hall began to buzz with excitement as word went around, and we stood in little groups all along the corridor, waiting half an hour or so later. Harry came out, glistening with the sweat, closed the door quietly behind him, and then held up a condom bloated with his disgusting seed. That was Harry for you, a real monster. I suppose I was somehow flattered by the notice a man of such powers had taken of Elise's cry when I confided to him later that Ralph was the name of the girl's proper boyfriend. He promptly changed it to call me Assistant Ralph, or if Elsie was around, simply AR. Despite this rather precipitous beginning, Elsie and I became very good and steady friends. I can't pretend that I ever thought of marriage, but I must admit I did begin to feel spend my next holidays in the capital and take the bus to our hospitals every so often while she was able to spend her days off in the city. That was why the minister's offer couldn't have come at a more opportune moment. I had, of course, one or two bachelor friends in the capital who would have had no difficulty in putting me up, but they were unlikely to provide a guest room with all amenities. For days after the minister visit, I was still trying to. He seemed so offended by his old nickname, MA minus opportunity. I don't know why I should have been so preoccupied with such an important trust, but it often happens to me like that. I get hold of some pretty inane thought or chiptune I would ordinarily be ashamed of, to be cuffed whistling like that, right? Using advertising an intestinal worm explode and I get stuck with it. When I first knew Mr. Nanga in 1948, he had seemed quite happy with his nickname. I suspect he had, in fact, invented it himself. Certainly he enjoyed it, his name being M.A. Nanga. His fellow teachers called him simply and fondly M.A. He answered minus opportunity, which he didn't have to do unless he liked it, which when the present angry reaction, I finally decided that it stemmed from the same general anti-intellectual feeling in the country. In 1948, Mr. Nanga could admit, albeit lightheartedly, to a certain secret yearning for higher education. In 1964, he was valiantly proving that a man like him was better without it. Of course, he had not altogether persuaded himself, or else he would not have shown such excitement over the LLD arrangement for him from some small backstreet college with